Before I get into the details of how to create and manipulate pivot tables, I'd like to demonstrate a few of the ways pivot tables help you analyze your worksheet data. When you look at a pivot table, it looks a lot like a regular worksheet with rows and columns of data, labels, subtotals, and grand totals. The difference is that a pivot table allows you to rearrange your data dynamically within the worksheet. If you click a cell inside of a pivot table, then you will see that Excel displays the Options and Design tabs on the ribbon. These contextual tabs allow you to manipulate your pivot table either by changing its style, which you can do on the Design tab, or on the Options tab, refreshing its data, changing its data source, and so on. What's really exciting about pivot tables is that you can change the structure of your data to emphasize different aspects of that data. Pivot tables are divided into several different areas. First, you have the pivot table field list, which allows you to manipulate the pivot table. And within the field list, you have the number of fields, which are data types that you can use. So you have the year, in this case the quarter, which is not displayed, month, company name, and revenue. And you can see those fields reflected in the body of the report. You change the arrangement of the fields within your pivot table using the field area, which is down here at the bottom of the pivot table field list task pane. So for example, you can have your company data as the column labels, and you can see that reflected here in the body of the pivot table with firm A and firm B. Then the row labels would be the year, in this case 2009, and then the month, starting with January and going down through December. If you want to change the pivot table's layout, you can do that by dragging a field name from one area to another. So for example, let's say that you wanted to lay out your data so that it was company, year, and month, and each of the company, year, and month labels were in the row area. To make that pivot, you would drag the company field name to the top of the row labels area, and then when you release the mouse button, the pivot table updates the data to reflect your new organization. So now we have all the results for firm A in 2009 by month, and then below the year 2009, we go to 2010 and again by month. And lower down in the pivot table, you'll see the same result for firm B. So I will scroll down using my mouse wheel, and below the grand total for firm A, you see the same data for firm B. You can also filter the data in your pivot table to focus your analysis. So let's say, for example, as I scroll back up to the top, that I wanted only to display the data for firm B. To create a filter, I can go into the pivot table field list and then click the company fields down arrow and then create the filter. In this case, I only want to show the data for firm B, so I will clear the checkbox next to firm A and then click OK. When I do, Excel updates the pivot table so that only the data for firm B is displayed. If I want to clear that filter, then I can go into the pivot table field list, click the company fields bar, and then click Clear Filter from Company. When I do, Excel restores the data. You can also change the look of your pivot table. You can do that by adding or changing a style. So for example, if I click the Design tab, I can select any one of the available pivot table styles. So if I click the More button in the gallery, then I can click any of the available styles, and I will go down and I'll click one that's a bit darker for contrast. I hope this brief demonstration has given you a feel for pivot tables' capabilities. In the remaining movies in this course, I'll go into much more detail on how to create and manipulate pivot tables and the data they contain.